Thank you for joining us. You're watching a career success video from Computer Coach. Computer Coach is a Tampa-based computer training center specializing in helping IT and business professionals add on the skills they need to reach their desired career goals. If you are job searching, in transition, or are looking for guidance, please feel free to reach out to us at www.computercoach.com. Now, let's get started.
Hi, everyone. If I can get a thumbs up that you can hear me, you can use one of the features, or you can just unmute yourself. All right. I get a hands up. That works. And I see a thumbs up. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on this webinar. Let's go ahead and make sure that we're optimizing our time together and adding our LinkedIn in the Zoom chat window. I'll go ahead and add mine right now, and then So I am Danielle Ori. I'm the Director of Career Services with Computer Coach. For those of you who aren't familiar, we are a Tampa, Florida tech training school, and we specialize in tech boot camps, a variety of continuing education and upskilling programs, certification prep programs for experienced IT and business professionals, and also those who are looking to break into the technology space. So again, welcome to all of you. If you are interested in learning more about the programs and classes that we offer, please reach out to us. We'll be excited and happy to have a free career strategy session with you. It doesn't cost anything. Just, want to talk about what you're interested in and maybe what field you might be interested in. So with that, I would actually like to shift over and do a little bit of housekeeping and then let our excellent expert guest panelists introduce themselves. So the housekeeping is use the chat, and I see everybody utilizing it very easily and seamlessly, so that's good. You can also use the Q&A feature. We will have time at the end of the session to answer your burning questions about how to job search during the holidays. So with that, my next step is to allow our speakers to introduce themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and go from left to right, and on my screen, I see Steve. So Steve, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Steve Ossenheimer. I'm a director of talent acquisition with Encore. So we do event productions, AV work, hospitality, and so on. Yeah, pretty exciting here. I love the holidays. Holidays for us, we always love family, but it just seems like during the holidays, it's a little more special. So I always enjoy this time of the year for sure.
Awesome. Well, great. Thank you for being with us. All right. The next person on my screen is Recruiter Dave.
So I'm David Burleson. I've been in executive search now for about 23 years. I work for Stephen Douglas, for the largest search firm in the Southeast. Boutique, mostly the higher level positions. I work exclusively in the IT space. And I happen to be a graduate of Computer Coach. So I took some Agile and HR and I believe business analytics courses.
Glad to have you with us, Dave. All right, Brian, you are next on my screen.
Hey, I'm Brian Davison. I've been around the recruiting and HR space for a couple of decades now, starting off in the Navy and working all different types of industries after retiring from the military. Right now, like so many others, I found myself looking for a new career during the holidays. So I get to talk about my own experiences along with different tips that I've learned along the way. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your service. All right. We got someone else who's in the military. Philip, please introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Philip Curry. I am a recruiter. I've been in the industry for about 8 years now. I'm in the AV engineering space as well, and I love recruiting. I've also been in the military. I'm actually still in the military in an HR capacity, and I will say my favorite part about holidays or the fourth quarter is honestly for me to slow down. Well, at least for my industry, and spending time with family and friends and the loved ones.
Thank you. And thank you for your service. Would you share what branch?
Army.
All right, and thank you. All right, so with that, let's get into it. And I want to start off with a question that I see on LinkedIn all the time. I get asked all the time. Networking events, I hear people, making snide comments. Are the job postings real during this time of year, during Q4, or are they just real, like old and stale listings? So, Steve, let's start with you. What do you say to those job postings?
I will say that if they're online, they're real. Now, how old they are may be a different story, but I don't know how many employers will post jobs that they're not really looking to hire for. I think there's a lot of other factors that come into the fourth quarter, whether they're hiring or not for December or maybe for next year on what those postings do. But I think Phil, you had some feedback on this one too, right?
I do actually. So for that question, I would say generally they are real, but there are a few things to keep in mind. And the first thing I would say to keep in mind is the posting date. So I would check the posting date, see when the job was posted. If it was posted a month ago, it's more likely it's a stale listing. So I probably would avoid that one. The second thing I would say for those job postings in the fourth quarter is look for keywords. So usually you see words like urgently hiring or immediate start. Those are big words that you should look for because those are strong indicators that a company is actively looking to fill that position. So apply for those. And the third thing is you really want to visit the company's website, their social media page. If the company is active on their social media, they're most likely hiring. And finally, the most companies, I would say, they post on job boards, so like your Indeed, your ZipRecruiter, and on their career page. So if you see a posting on a job board, you can go and check on their career page and see if it's real, and it's a good way to verify that authenticity.
Excellent. If you saw me looking down, any of you, it's because oh, my pen, there it is. I was taking notes. So great. Thank you both for that feedback. So you mentioned, Phil, you said, oh, look for those keywords about, immediate start or urgent hiring or something like that. So would you say that most of the jobs during Q4 are, temporary or seasonal?
I would say it's a mixture of both. So there's temporary jobs, obviously, and then there's permanent jobs because companies are looking ahead. They're looking towards the New Year's and to start off strong. So it's both. And usually you can tell if it's a seasonal job, usually the sector is it's retail, hospitality, shipping and delivery. If it's a permanent job, it will say so.
Okay. Excellent. Brian, did you want to chime in on this one?
Definitely, I mean, yeah, jobs posted in fourth quarter, especially in IT, they are full-time usually. They're not seasonal, they're not going to be temporary unless they're a contract, and you'll see that either from an agency or a vendor.
Mhm,
They're going to be permanent jobs.
mhm,
So that wouldn't be something, unless you're looking for temporary, which some people are. I mean, I've been in
Mhm.
recruiting for a hot minute now, and some people are just looking for that temporary fix, just to do something before they move on to something else. They like that pattern. There's quite a bit of people in the IT industry that like that contract work where they don't have to worry about benefits or anything like that, and they can do those few months, that seasonal job. But job postings will absolutely delineate between whether it's seasonal, contract, or permanent full time. For job postings that are missing a few things, I'd be a little bit leery of those that don't have all the information you need. But if you ever want to vet it, look the individuals up, look the company up. LinkedIn is available to everyone. Go and find the individual and reach out to get more details on the role. Now, there are techniques and ways to go about doing it where you can actually get a return answer, a response. But yeah, most jobs in the fourth quarter, they're permanent unless otherwise stated.
Excellent. All right.
I would
Before,
also,
oh
oh,
yes, go
sorry.
ahead. No, please.
I would also add like some tips for applicants. So set up a job alert. Why? It saves you time and effort. So when you do this, you will automatically get notified about new job postings that matches your criteria. This means that you don't have to manually go in and search for jobs every day. It just makes your life a lot easier. Add into this, you will be the first to know about a new job opening. So this is pretty straightforward. As the going says, early bird catches a worm. So the first to apply to a new job opening increases your chance of getting an interview first and landing that job. And I would say, as Brian said, reaching out to the hiring managers, reaching out to recruiter, it shows initiatives, it makes you stand out. And I would say, for example, whenever someone reaches out to me, I love seeing that because it makes my job easier. And on occasion, that has resulted in somebody getting that job just from reaching out, putting themselves out there, taking that initiative. And then you skip the internal hiring tracking system. You just go straight to the end source.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think there's also now in most job boards, aren't there filters for seasonal work? Like you can just
Of course.
type, I'm looking for seasonal. If you were looking for something like that, you could sort it that way, make it easier for you to find those jobs.
And Dave, with your specialty, you're not ever typically looking for temp. You're always looking for full time and kind of ABC, always be closing, right?
Yeah, it's a different creature. As you guys are running into this problem, applicants out there, and obviously I'll talk about it. And I put together a little sheet to share with some of you guys, but we seldom use any. I don't have time to use job posts, to be honest with you, because everyone has this shotgun approach. And they literally, you guys know, I work 50, 60 hours a week. And for me to try to keep up with these job postings and stuff like that, it's next to impossible. There are just floods and floods of applicants. So I seldom use job postings or refer to job postings. I can verify that I have used them in the past, that most of the time, if a company is using them, there is a job there. What the urgency is always dependent, but there are a lot of ways to get around that entire system because it's, I don't want to call it broken, but we're in a weird place right now. With all the layoffs and everything that's happening in the market and the whole 9 yards. I mean, the saturation rate of people throwing their resume out there, I wouldn't not do it, but there's probably a little bit better approach as far as penetrating a company, in my experience.
Absolutely. You have, some statistics show almost just a 4% chance when you just spray and pray. That's pretty rough, So let's not get down too much. Let's talk about maybe some of the biggest challenges that the employer on the company side has in filling roles during the holidays. So I'll start with you, Steve. What do you think the biggest challenges for the company?
Well, there's a few, depending on how the year goes, right? So at fourth quarter, there's a lot of reevaluation of budgets and how we doing financially. So there's sometimes those year-end budget constraints.
Okay.
Do we have the ability to hire now? Should we push it off? But more logistically, there's things like hiring managers are taking time off during this period. So interview time is a little bit stressed. Also, the candidates are heading home for the holidays or I'm taking a vacation. So their candidate availability is a little soft sometimes. And then the big one is really competition with other companies. And in my mind, if you're not, like if you are going to hire seasonal, I'd want to get my postings, my social media platform out there right away because there's a lot of competition. And if I don't get out there first, by the time I do post, there may be even less candidates available. So those are some, I think those are logistically, and then there's the budget part about how difficult it could be.
Okay. All right. So the employers have challenges too. Brian, did you want to share?
I just came from fintech, where finance tech really big, but almost everyone in the industry, unless it's a critical hire, they had a critical loss in the organization, they're looking to hire people, they'll make offers during the holiday season, but a lot of times they're not going to start until January because, like Steve mentioned, budgets and whatnot. They want to start fresh with the new year, the actual calendar year. They will get the recruiters to keep people interested even after an offer letter for, and I've had to do this even in my former company for almost 2 months. Keep them excited and active and everything, keep them engaged in the company after an offer while the organization waits until January 2nd to be able to bring the individual in. So the companies can hire during fourth quarter. They're just not going to probably start a lot of them, especially in the fintech world.
Okay. So thank you both for that. It really does segue nicely into the question about, how realistic is it to hire someone during fourth quarter? But I guess I would say, let's say if you are hiring someone during fourth quarter, on the one hand, you have the temps, right? So you think about how is the training for that? Well, if you go by what Steve said, you want to get everything up early, in the summertime, right? Before you get to the actual need that you're trying to fulfill. But then what about onboarding and training for those permanent positions, right? If we're not talking about seasonal and retail or restaurants or something like that, how realistic is it to bring on a permanent contributor, or a full-time role when you have people going to see family and stuff? So I'll start with Philip.
So I will say it's difficult, but it's not impossible. There are employers hiring during this time. It is significantly slower, but we are still hiring. And I will say there are some benefits to this tight labor market that we see during the fourth quarter, during the holidays. So there are oftentimes more job openings than there are qualified candidates. So one of the biggest issues that the companies face is this time constraint. So they need to fill these positions, they need to fill them fast, and it could be difficult with high turnovers, people traveling for family and stuff like that. But the benefits to you, the job seeker, is that companies are also very competitive in this time with benefits and pay and all that stuff. So they want to keep you, they want to attract you, and it's in your best interest to apply. The other aspect that I feel is very beneficial to you for applying during this time is that companies become more flexible. So you could say they're a little bit more desperate, but I'll take it. This means that they're willing to talk to someone with maybe less experience or different background than what they're used to, because they really need this person. And lastly, the companies during this time, they try to make the process quicker and easier for you because, time is money. And so they want you fast. The season is very short. There's a lot of money to be made during the season. So the process to get you on board, get you started as fast. I will say the downside of this is that there might be less training involved, but the point is companies want you. So it is in your best interest to be prepared, have your resumes ready and tailored to these positions. And once you're called, you're ready to go.
Good. Dave, I wanted to ask you, it's obviously realistic because you only work with permanent roles, but I'm curious, my question specifically for you and then the rest of the group as well is how much candidate fallout do you have during this time of year?
I wanted to verify this before I even came on there. And I've known it to be the case. We all in recruiting after years and years, hey, the holidays, it's going to slow down, that sort of. Statistically, that's absolutely not true. As far as our year over year in November and December, there is no meaningful change in the amount of placements or income. It really does not change all that much. I think it's obviously we're doing this, we're talking about it right now. So it's a well-known, at least out there in the wild, that, hey, it's a little bit slower. That's an opportunity too. The clients that need to hire, the ones that are at the end of their budget, or if, we're at year end and that sort of stuff, you have a whole lot of motivation coming from them and a lot less competition. So every candidate thinks, I'm not even going to bother looking. I mean, what's the reality? Nobody's hiring. These job postings aren't real. And there's a slowdown on the candidate side as much as there is on the client side. And the clients that are hiring, at least the ones I work with, they are motivated to get it done. If they don't get this budget spent by X, or if they can't answer to, hey, January 1, I have this developer, I have these people starting. Like they said, onboarding, training, there may be a little bit of lull, but get the fish in the boat. There are absolutely companies that are out there hiring, and there's a lot less candidates out there. It's just a change in mindset. I think that there are a hell of a lot of different approaches, and there really is maybe even more opportunity right now because you have less competition. You have less people out there. You have all these things that you don't get during the normal year, right? Like holiday networking. Holiday parties. How many friends do you have that you can go to their parties and you can meet people and just, go out there? There really is a lot of opportunity out there. So I don't want to say it's a myth, but we have not seen any changes come holiday time.
Okay.
And to add to that too, for my company, we have referrals, and I could say that for a lot of other companies too. So they're your friends, your family, your coworkers, former coworkers. They are incentivized to bring people on. They get a good sizable chunk of bonus to bring you on. So yeah, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to former colleagues about any job openings that that they might have at their company, so they can push you in and attend those industry events, those job fairs, connect with people on LinkedIn, and yeah, there's just many avenues out there for you to get that job.
So, Steve, I want to talk to you. Dave was talking about there's clients who are motivated to secure their budgets, fill the positions so that they don't lose them. But sometimes positions get put on hold, right? Is there an increased risk of that during this time of year for the permanent positions, or what's your take on that?
Yeah. Up to everyone's point here, there's always a risk. It could potentially happen, but I always go back to how the company's year has gone. If it's been a great year, things are going well, and the projection for next year is be just as strong, then there's no decrease in hiring in the fourth quarter. We're getting ready for January. So good sales, good profits, that means move forward, no matter how busy they think they're going to be. On the other hand, if it's not been a great year and the company is hesitant, I can guarantee you that if somebody was a great candidate, like, hey, that person would fit into our company really well, they got good skill sets, good culture fit, and so on, the company will figure out a way to bring that person on board. Now, it might be January 2nd, to what everybody was kind of mentioning here, or it could be somewhere in December. There's some advantages to December hiring in a sense of it's a little depending on which industry you're in. Like if I'm looking at Target, to go seasonal, I'm busy. If I'm in a business where it's maybe not, December is more of a slow month, it's a great time maybe to train and get somebody into the mix so they're not running full speed when they first jump through the door. So you got to kind of look at the companies themselves, what type of company it is, to kind of get a better understanding of that. But I think the positions that are posted, I think as we've talked about here, probably a pretty real posting, most likely.
Okay. That was all of you are giving very thorough answers. So I appreciate that. Here's a question that, kind of stabs you right here in the middle. Have you ever had to rescind a job offer? Whether it's rescinding it in January for an offer that was made during this Q4 time, whether it's for budgeting or a decision to restructure or something like that. So I'll just leave it open and see who wants to.
I would say yes, that's happened. There are just some factors. I know we already talked about how great the company's doing or how not great it's doing and so on, but there are just circumstances that come up. Inflation, maybe strikes are affecting supply chains. Companies understand they can't operate without great people, but there are just circumstances that might come up where, hey, our projections now have dipped 50% for next year based on these factors that we have no control over in a way. So yeah, sometimes rescinding the offer is the only option they have at that moment.
What do you share with the candidate?
Well, personally, it's full transparency, honest. hey man, here's the things that are affecting our decision. It's not any reflection of you. We're going to certainly, as things pick back up, we're going to reach back out to you, see if you're still available. But I think you can't hide. I just don't think it's fair to the candidate after all that and get an offer and then tell them, oh yeah, we changed our mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Phil, what do you think?
If a
Oh,
company,
sorry.
I'm sorry, if a company did that, I would be concerned about going to work there.
Yeah.
There you go. That's a good tip.
Yeah.
I would say I've never had to rescind an offer. The more likely conclusion is a candidate got a competing offer and they took that. So we have to restart the process, which is not cool. But it happens. I will say in the fourth quarter, if you are usually around this time is when budgets are being like hashed out or they're already hashed out. So the company should know at least how they're looking for like the next few months, Q1, maybe even Q2 already. So in my experience, I feel like it's very unlikely, not to say it never happens, but it's very unlikely that you would get a rescinding of the offer unless it's some very specific circumstances unrelated to you, your interview skills, or anything like that. And as Steve says, and again, it might not even be the end of the road. It could be a rescission now, but in a few weeks or a month or so, we could revisit this and bring you on. So I'll say never in that case.
Okay. Excellent. So this next question is for Brian. If a candidate is already actively in an interview process, what do you think that they could expect as far as, all of these potential hurdles? Maybe just pick one, right? During this time of year, what could a candidate expect and how should they conduct themselves? I don't want to lead you on too much, but as far as being a little bit patient with the process.
That's the key word right there. Patience. Patience is key, honestly, during this time of year. And sorry I skipped out. I'm working on Hotspot right now because Frontier said, we're not going to have your internet on right now for some reason. So here I am on Hotspot, but patience. Patience is key. If you're in the interview process already, especially during December, that is great. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. It's just have to patiently wait for the next interview, for the next hiring manager, or whoever's in the next chain to get through that person. A lot of times there may be just one person deep for the interview process for the next steps, and you just have to wait for them to return. But if you're in the interview process, the recruiter is happy. They're excited for you. They want you to get the job because that just means it's better for us. That means it's a wreck that we get to close down soon, honestly, and move on to other things. So patience. And it's okay to continuously communicate with your recruiter during that time just to get an idea of what's going on. The recruiter should be honest and upfront with you as well to let you know where you're at in the process, what's going on with the next steps. Now, this is all within moderation. I can't stress that enough, moderation. I did have a candidate that would email me or call me or text me almost every single day. And his exact words were demanding, I expect to know a status report of what's going on with this role and the next steps at all times. And it's like, wow, that's not really how this works. But patience. The recruiter is truly looking out for your best interest to ensure that, if you meet all the qualifications, we want you in that role, honestly. So we're going to communicate as much as we possibly can. We do have other roles that we have to hire for. We do have other clients or other hiring managers we have to work with, but we will communicate as often as we can. And we should always let you know around the next time you're going to hear from us. Now, if you don't hear from us during that time, wow, reach out. You have our emails. Usually you have our phone numbers. So
And
communication should be happening.
I would add to this and pivot a little bit. So scenario, say you've got a job in December. You were laid off, you got a job in mid-December, December 15th, and you're not supposed to start until January something. That's when they're ready for you. But you still have food you gotta put on the table, still have bills to pay. this is a perfect time to get like one of those, temporary seasonal job to, be like a stopgap for you until you officially start. So it's not all bad. There's opportunities out there for you to, again, put food on the table, survive for those few weeks before you officially start in this potentially permanent position.
Steve or Dave, do you have any comments about how the candidate should react or conduct themselves when they're, being patient throughout the process? And I would say this isn't just for fourth quarter, but of course that's our theme. So I'll start with you, Dave.
My advice to anybody would be that every company has their process, how they hire things. Every candidate should have their process too. And the same with, we have a saying in executive searches, until there's an offer made, you keep submitting candidates until that thing is. So for candidates, I think it's best practice to continue working your process, continue looking at what other opportunities are available to you. You may be in love with this company, but there may be a better company, or you may be able to circle back. But as far as conducting themselves, patience, you obviously don't want to follow up 20 times and constantly, look desperate. That's never a good sign. So I personally, contingency is key. Contingency plans, continue to work your process, get better at your process. Best case scenario, you have multiple offers and you can make the best decision for yourself. So that'd be the advice I'd give to, a friend or a candidate I work with.
Awesome. Steve, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say following up on that process thing, sometimes it's good to ask the recruiter, what is the process, right? So if I ask the recruiter, what's the process? Well, we're going to decide in 2 weeks. Okay, well, I know now I shouldn't be expecting anything before 2 weeks. And so I can plan my responses in a better way. So as long as, once you have that information, you can make a better plan, a better process for doing that. I would highly recommend, though, that there is follow-up. I always kind of find it interesting when someone's in an interview process for 3 or 4 weeks and they don't check in, like they don't ask, where am I at? How's it going? Nothing like that. And not that they're lost in the process. It's just an interesting, I don't know, if they want the job, find out what have I got to do to get myself at the top of the list again and make sure you know who I am.
Yeah, I concur.
Yeah.
All right. So going on to just briefly to a topic about being unemployed or underemployed during the holidays. For some people, the holidays are a really special time about family, or maybe they just stir up a lot of different emotions, and sometimes if you, like I said, are employed or underemployed, there's that mental health aspect of anxiety or, depression or feeling down because you don't have a job during this time. So what would you say to people who are searching during this time? So what I'm going to do, hopefully it's okay to put you on the spot, Brian, if you would share how you keep yourself motivated and then also give feedback to our attendees.
So, since I'm finding myself in the exact position that I never expected during the holidays, since my company, a fintech company, just went away with all the TA functions in the US, surprise, surprise, but here I am. Luckily, I had the foresight to build a very positive network. And I can't stress that enough to everyone, is build out that network. That's through LinkedIn, through different organizations in your community. But that's something that I always keep on top of. Regardless of how overemployed I am, I continuously build my network. And that's how I actually met everyone at Computer Coach, honestly, is building out that network. But LinkedIn is a huge part of that when it comes to that. What I'm doing right now is it's very important to keep that self-care. That doesn't mean blowing off the job search and everything, because a full-time job right now is looking, is seeking, is finding that opportunity, tailoring that resume, then tailoring LinkedIn to match that resume, or your DICE profile or whatnot, or your Indeed profile. Continually working on that, building out relationships with people at new organizations. For me, I love amusement parks. So luckily I'm a passport already. So I just spend my time, I drive out to Orlando and there I am at the amusement park again. But it's important to take that time, to take that breather, to take a step away from the stress, the anxiety, because it will engulf you. It will take over your life if you allow it. So you need to have those outlets in place. Without them, it's going to be an even greater challenge. Right now, luckily, I have people that I lean on. Like Gus Rendon, Gustavo Rendon. He's actually a good friend of mine. He owns his own talent company as well, and he hires tech. So of course, he worked a lot together in my past company with him, and looking at starting up my own venture, actually branching out. Now I have time. I never really had time as managing TA and HR functions. I never have time because I'm like Dave over there working 60 plus hours a week. So I never had time to really focus on other things. But this has given me the time to work on projects that I've dreamt of for years and years. So that's what I'm working on projects. That's self-care, continually networking. That should never end, honestly, ever. You never know when you're going to find that person that's going to be able to help you overcome a challenge or get to that next level. That's what I do. And that's how I'm getting through this time. And of course, my family, can't emphasize that enough. They're there for me, and I'm there for them still. Never lose sight of what is truly important. We're not defined by our employment status, and never let that happen. My job was not who I was. That is how I earned an income. It was fun because I love recruiting, especially in the tech space, but it's not who I am.
Right.
Never lose sight of that. And that's one of the best advice I can give.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Brian. Does anyone else want to chime in on this topic before we go to the next question?
Yeah, I would say, to reiterate what Brian said, is, developing that mental fortitude. You're in this bad position, and people have been in this position before and they've overcome it. So you can do it too. And it's stressful, it's hard, it's unfair, but you can overcome this. And as far as tips that you could do to, help you with this during this trying time, LinkedIn is really good. It's a bad spot to be in, but I would, announce it on LinkedIn, post it out there, let people know that you're unemployed. It's something that you didn't foresee, but it's the position you're in right now. And you never know who could offer you something. A position could just come right at you just from that position of weakness. So don't keep it to yourself. Put yourself out there. Know that it wasn't your fault. And even if it was, this is a temporary thing right now, and it's not going to be forever. It's a small thing and you're going to overcome it. So that mental fortitude, putting yourself out there, I think that's really helpful in helping you overcome this issue.
Yeah. Sounds like what I'm hearing is, these are the things that really help you be more resilient. And I would just add that some selfless service is also a great way to overcome, feeling a little down, not just looking at what's in it for you or what can be done for you or to help you. I think that the people around you and the relationships that you build, obviously, those people are in a relationship with you or some sort of connection with you because they like you. So they probably still want to support you. But I think it's also important to pay it forward and to give back. And that's usually when it sort of surprises you, right? Something happens because you're looking down and helping someone else, right? And then you look up and you go, oh, an opportunity. So I know I'm not on the panel, but I wanted to go ahead and slip that in. All right. Anything else before we go to the next question? All right. So I'll start with you, Dave. I know that Steve was mentioning, hey, it's kind of weird when we go 3 to 4 weeks and I don't hear from a candidate. Don't you really want the job? Right? So I'd love to hear from you. What can candidates do to demonstrate that they're truly interested or, to get noticed?
Getting noticed is there's a lot to that. And funny thing, actually, I did a webinar for some friends that work with FANG candidates. They work with people from Google and whatnot. And we were having a conversation about it. A lot of entry-level people. And I didn't know that working in executive search, I'm working with people with usually 10, 20, 30, they've got quite a bit of experience. And most of these folks, like maybe our audience, were entry level or we're just trying to get into the industry. And the approach that I learned is common. This shotgun approach is just as broken as it gets as far as beating the system and doing just that little bit more. You have these candidates I talk to that They had applied to 50, 100, 200, I mean, just massive amounts of jobs, but they didn't have a system. They weren't doing anything any differently than any of the other candidates. So they were just one of many. So there's a number of things I could tell candidates about, getting around that entire system. As far as working with recruiters and follow-ups and that sort of thing, we, executive recruiters, imagine 50 plates spinning at any given time. So we have a lot of candidates, a lot of jobs, a lot of things happening, all on different time frames. And it is a huge value to have candidates reach out to me, once every week, once every 2 weeks. Hey, where are we? What's going on? Just to remind me. Something else I'll follow up with, that I think would likely come up at some point. Candidates are often the first to say, well, I don't get any feedback. Why am I hearing nothing from anyone? And I think candidates may misunderstand that our job as recruiters, the reason we exist, the only reason we exist, is to get people hired. And the only way we get people hired is to understand what our hiring managers are looking for. And the only way to do that is to get feedback. So I am the probably biggest advocate in the world of feedback. I am pushing that client 100% of the time, give me feedback, give me feedback. But calling a candidate back when you aren't able to get that feedback and you have nothing to share unless you make something up, so we, in most cases, these guys can probably agree with me. In most cases, I would love nothing better than to give feedback, whether it's good or bad or just anything, just because I would want the exact same thing. So if I got a little off track there, it just popped into my head like,
That's okay.
Wait a second. But we are obviously constantly trying to get feedback from the clients and having candidates reach out to us. They're working with us as recruiters, even as internal recruiters. The internal recruiter wants to get you hired too. It's their job to fill that job. So anything you can do to work with them to help that to an end is a huge value, short of calling every day or, that sort of thing. Trust, if we have feedback, you'll get a call immediately.
Right. So when we think about people, getting noticed, sometimes in our mind, we think, our mind as in HR and talent acquisition professionals, we think you understand what I'm talking about as far as getting noticed appropriately. And I think that sometimes other people get noticed for some of the wrong reasons, i.e. salacious postings on, I'll just stick with LinkedIn, that's the professional networking, professional job board site, or being overly argumentative or something like that. So when we talk about candidates demonstrating that they're interested, but also getting noticed, Steve, what do you think shows, stands out for candidates? If you already have someone in the hopper, but you go to do a little bit extra research and look at their LinkedIn profile, for example, or Instagram, what helps that person stand out, that candidate, excuse me?
I say, if you're going to talk about posting, think being an active poster. Like if I was looking for somebody to be engaged in my company and I think they would get along with people and fit in and so on. And I look on their LinkedIn page and there's a lot of, sharing positive posts from other people or posting things that are positive and so on.
Okay.
So I think that's one of them, but I don't know if this is where you're heading, but like if I'm an applicant, I think with some of the questions I have to the point of why don't I hear from the recruiter is because we're waiting sometimes to get feedback, but also we're getting emails from some candidates, but not all candidates. And I think one of us said that those that send us information are usually the ones we think about because they just contacted us. So if I were to think about, okay, how can I get a hold of the recruiter? The first thing is everybody should get an email when you apply to a job, and it should say, hey, we've received your resume. It's under consideration. If you look at the email address and it does not have no reply in the email address, you can respond to that. It's a formatted template and so on, but you can still respond. And I at least get those emails back like, hey, looking for an update, or hey, thanks. I understand you got my email or my resume and so on. So that's one way. The other way to keep in touch with somebody and just kind of get yourself noticed a little bit is every company has a contact us link. And so I find it interesting. I will get resumes sent to our CEO, our president, our chief HR person, and they just flow them down to me, right? Hey, this person reached out to me. It's like, Well, that's pretty kind of cool. That's not, they didn't, it's kind of weird in a way, like, why did you go all the way to the top? But maybe that's who they could find. I will say, though, that most executives don't really want to get into the research and
Yeah.
somebody's resume and all that, but they will just say, hey, HR, take this. And then the other way I would think is by doing some research on the internet, you can just find HR people that work at different companies, and it's pretty easy to find an email address and so on. If you're looking to just get feedback, where am I at in the process? Or can I just talk to a person and something along those lines? I don't know if I answered that. Is that?
No, you touched on a few things and you piggybacked off of what Dave brought up. So I did see Phil unmute before you, Brian. So I'm going to go to Phil and then I'll come to you, Brian. Go ahead, Phil.
So I would say two things. The first, specifically on LinkedIn, change your status to open to work. That way people come to you. It's always easier to have people come to you than you going out and applying for a bunch of jobs. So first thing first, do that. The second thing you should do is try to have your LinkedIn page, your profile, look as close to your resume as possible. So as a recruiter, when I'm looking at your profile, I can see what you've done, what you're doing, what you've done in the past, any sort of certifications, any sort of systems, or any kind of knowledge that you have specifically that I need for a position that I'm recruiting for. And it's just easier for me. It's best for you because I can find you easier, reach out to you with potential opportunities, get you interviews, and get you a job. So make yourself as attractive as possible.
Right. Brian?
Yeah, on that note, actually, when it comes to your resume, when it comes to your LinkedIn profile, when I'm doing searches, because I've used all the little toys out there to do searches, I'm looking for those keywords, actually. And if you don't have those keywords that I need for that job, then I'm just going to miss your profile. So make sure you understand those are in your resume. Those are in your LinkedIn profile somewhere. If it's a certification that's needed for the job, make sure you have that on your LinkedIn profile attached to it. Make sure it's on your resume because that's what I'm searching for to make things go a little bit quicker. And so I think somebody asked a question, how was it? Where was it? Making it maze to find out for follow-up. So if you're looking for people on LinkedIn, because we can only look based off of our connections for the most part. If you can only see from your second and third connection, depending on the subscription status you have with LinkedIn. Google custom search. Can't emphasize that enough. Google custom search. Here's a quick tip for everyone. You go in and put in a good Boolean string for that, and you can come up with everyone in LinkedIn that you want. You go in there and you can search, and it'll show you people that you can't come in contact with because of their fourth or fifth connection. But it's going to show you everyone. It is free up to, I think, 1,000 searches or something. But the first 100 searches are free. And do that to find the people you need. It's a recruiting technique I use, honestly, to find people or to look for people in different positions at different companies, especially if I'm looking for executives. But yeah, use these techniques. And of course, I don't know if you've heard of them all, but informational interviews. All right. It's a great way when it comes to networking. Now, it's just like developing a relationship. You're not going to walk up to somebody, especially on a date or something, and first date and say, let's get married. They're going to look at you like you're crazy. They're going to ignore you. They're going to run. So it's all about building that rapport initially if you want that informational interview with that person from that company. So don't start off, say, with your first message to them. I need to talk to you about X, Y, and Z. Hi, I noticed you're in this industry. Make it personal. That you've actually paid attention to their profile. That's part of networking. And then build that relationship until you can ask for an informational interview. And maybe if they don't have a role for you right now, they'll think, oh my goodness, I just had this talk with this amazing individual a month ago, and he or she would be great for the position. So go out there and develop those relationships as well through Google Custom Search. Is a great way to do that.
Awesome. Those are some great tips. Oh, did I?
Well, I was going to say, I think there's a TV show, First Blind Marriages or something like that, isn't it? Like
Married at First Sight, I think.
Married at First Sight.
Don't think they're going to be lasting. Don't think those are lasting relationships. So.
But I would say, like, one thing, and just in case someone's wondering, like when you say, I'm looking for key words and so on, those are in the job description. So if you're not sure where they are, read the job description, pick out the things make sure they're in your profile. I would encourage you to make a cover letter, including all the things that are in the job description that you have and on your resume. That's just as a tip.
So the word networking came up a few times. I'm going to bounce it back over to Dave and ask, is it necessary to augment how you network during this time?
Yeah, actually, big time. So if you think about networking, ask anybody why they network, so they can find more opportunities, they can meet people. So everyone is really networking to get them something for themselves. It really is a mindset. And you find that your network and networking, the entire flavor will change if you approach it as you're there to help someone else. So every connection, spend time figuring out how you can help them. People are much more likely to reciprocate to you. So if it's approach of, hey, I want to connect with them so they can find an opportunity for me, everyone's doing that. I found a lot of success and candidates with a lot of success by start every connection that you get with, how can I help them? Look at some of their posts, what they've done. And trust me, as a recruiter, if I'm posting things out there, tips or jobs or whatever the case, I notice every person that likes my stuff. It's important because it distributes more of my stuff, So as simple as a candidate following a recruiter or following even a couple of people that work at a company they're trying to get into, they notice that one of them posts pretty regularly, like it, share it, talk about things. I think Steve or one of you guys brought up, positives. I definitely notice when I look up a candidate and every time they pop up on my feed, it's because they're talking about something relevant to that industry, technology, and they're really not like, a lot of people yelling about ghosting, inventing, and stay away from that. Go into what you're excited about. Find something you want to talk about. Say you're into databases and you find a cool article or you find a post. Go in there and talk about it. Dude, this is why I'm in this industry. That is so fascinating. One other thing I'd like to add, see, a lot of candidates, they go out there, hey, I'm looking for a job, and they're, putting all their stuff out there. And there's a whole lot of that. And you're really not going to get much traction. If you want to get traction, I promise you, make someone else look good. What you do is you work on let's say you're working on a project. I'm writing some HTML document and you get stuck. Go to LinkedIn and say, hey, I'm working on a project. I'm learning this new HTML thing and I keep getting stuck right here. You're going to be shocked how many HTML experts want to chime in and tell you, how smart they are and what they've learned. And that makes them look good. And it obviously could solve your problem if it's real. But you will find that you'll expand your network relevant to your skill sets if you just make other people, ask some questions. Say, oh, God, how come this does this and this does this? You'll have a lot of people chime in, a lot more than you will if you say, hey, I'm looking for a job. Can you help? So try that on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Make someone else look good. Ask for advice.
But I also heard you say engaging authentically.
Absolutely.
It's making other people look good, like stuff, follow. But when you actually show that you're interested versus stopping short with just the like, right? Or just the celebrate or whatever, that's fine. You can totally do that. You're scrolling through. But I think that it's important to actually show that you're reading the content that someone took the time to post and then responding to that versus, oh, I skimmed and I hit like.
It's, funny you said that. I want to dominate this part of the conversation, but that's another thing that shocks me is, same with like, if you're in IT, the software development life cycle and you know where it starts. The very first thing is, what are we trying to, what do we want?
Right.
Knowing your value proposition and what you're passionate about, it's not, hey, I just want a job. It's, what are the things that excite me? And once you know that, you'd be surprised how few resumes the person actually, once I talk to them and say, hey, what you worked on that you're really excited about? Or, tell me something you're proud of. And it's not on the resume anywhere. So that's step one to all of it is find out what you love. And when you figure it out, get out there and share it because every one of us will notice. You will stand out, sore thumb by talking about what you love and what you're passionate about. And it's easy as hell too. How hard is it to talk about something you like?
Awesome. Go ahead, Phil.
I would say I want to answer this in two folds, and we've discussed this previously. So the first one is to reach out to people from the company. I mentioned this earlier, but the easiest way to network is you see a job on a job board, something you're interested in, something you're qualified for, reach out to a recruiter and say, hey, I applied for this position. I don't know if you're the one that recruits for this position, but if you could help me or direct me in the right direction, connect with that recruiter too is always helpful. And that's an easy way to get you in the door, get you network with the right people. And the other aspect of that too, and this is from a recruiter standpoint, is I reach out to you for a job. I saw that you were open for work and I reached out to you and we did the screening and the interview process. And for one reason or the other, you did not get the position. We're still connected. So if a position opens in the future with a different team that I feel that maybe you were not a good fit for this team that you interviewed for, but you have the skills and you're good for another team, I can still reach out to you and say, hey, it's been a few months. I know you're still in your position, or maybe you've started a new position, but you're still interested in working for my company. Are you interested in this position I have for you with this new team? And it's yes, and we can start the process again, or it could be no, but we have that connection. And again, too, it goes both ways. So you can reach out to me again and say, hey, Philip, you have anything on your list of jobs that you think I might be interested? And I'll let you know. And you could go on our website and see what you like, any positions that are open, and I'll vet for you. I'll always try to push you forward because it doesn't hurt me. If you get the job, I benefit as well. So it doesn't hurt to reach out.
Awesome. So to wrap things up, I would like to just do a round robin to just get your key takeaways or your key tip or tips, if you'd like, if you're so inclined, before we look at the audience Q&As. So I'll start with you, Brian. What's your key takeaway?
Networking, patience. And during this time, even with challenges, acknowledge your feelings. Don't ignore any anxiety, depression that you may have. Don't just block it out. Acknowledge your feelings. It's healthy to do that. It's healthy to feel those things. And then move on smartly, if you will, and reach out to your network as it grows. It's okay to ask for help. It really is. That's my biggest takeaway from here.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Steve, what's your key takeaway or takeaways?
I think Brian got all the good ones.
You
Awesome.
can emphasize them.
Yeah, no, I think just staying positive during the time, using common sense when how you're approaching things, being assertive but not aggressive, professional, those kind of things. Yeah, there's jobs out there for everybody. Just got to find the right one.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Steve. All right, Dave.
What I would take away, honestly, is I don't believe that there's a huge difference at this time of year when it comes to job searching. And I think it is a matter of mastering your processes. Everything that you can control, and there are very specific steps. And if you define what they are and you do your very best to, your follow-ups, and there's an exact plan for how you do that, when you do it, and you follow your process the entire time, it's going to give you the best chance. Make it easy on everyone else. Mm-hmm. Resumes, for example, I think that's another problem, that people don't know exactly what to put on their resume. So they put so much stuff on their resume, and that ends up being a mess. And as anyone could allude to, there's more candidates, not less, more resumes, not less. What attention span you think people have? It's about a quarter of that. So make it clear, understand the job you're applying for and what they're asking for, and speak to it, speak directly to it. Do some research on the company, figure out what they do and how they do it, and speak directly to that, and quickly. That makes an internal recruiter's job easy. It makes my job easy, and it will get you noticed every single time. Whereas, just saying, well, what if I put this or this or this? You never know what to put. So you put too much, and you end up being passed over because nobody's got time for it. Hit what they want. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes I see, is people don't take the time to really target and research. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a job, looking for a job is your job. So, show some dedication to it. Really go that extra mile, because 99% of candidates aren't doing it. They're not really talking to the job and the company and their why. That's another big thing. Talk about your why. Why am I a fit? Why do I love what I do?
Yeah.
That would be the biggest tip I give people.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Phil, tie it up for us. Nice bow.
So for my biggest takeaway, I would say perseverance and great attitude. These are two things that you should always have with you. You should always take with you. And as far as the biggest tip, I mentioned earlier, but set up that job alert. You want to work smarter, not harder. So you want things to come to you. You want to be the first to see things, the first to apply to things. So you get a better chance of landing that job and, not having to be in a bad position in the holiday season. So yeah, set up that job alert.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and this is a great panel.
To learn more about our training programs, classes, and what sets us apart, please visit our website at www.computercoach.com.